Of freedom. Many of our combat veterans go their entire life and never tell the stories of what they saw in war. Mitchell Chastain is a combat veteran. In 2004, before his deployment to a war zone, his grandfather sat him down, told him a story about fighting in World War II. Mitchell had never heard the story before, and he says the rest of his family never heard it. As far as he knows, this was the only time his grandfather ever told that story.
I knew my grandfather had served in the military during World War II.
He said he saw these medals once as a child, and he always wanted to know what his grandfather did.
As a child, he knew that I'd always wanted to know about how he was wounded and what happened and everything, and at that point, he decided to tell me basically what occurred.
It was about 2 months before Mitchell deployed to Iraq in 2004. The first thing Clifford Chastain wanted his grandson to know, he was no hero.
The 21st day of January 1945, they were on top of a mountain in Luxembourg.
It was the Battle of the Bulge.
He remembered the date. 60 years later, he remembered the exact time, which I thought, again, was pretty unique. He said they came along and told him at 3:00 p.m. They were going to get up out of their foxholes and they were going to charge across the field. They weren't going to stop.
It was an intense day of fighting, and they came to a point where a field separated the U.S. soldiers and the German forces. During the charge, Clifford was shot through the arm.
They told him that they couldn't do anything more for him there, that there was a town down below the mountain.
So he started walking alone.
He made it to the aid station, and he said there were so many wounded there.
They wouldn't treat him and sent him away, so he wandered around the town for a while. At one point, he lied down on a doorstep. He said he almost died there.
And he started thinking about my dad, who was just a baby at that time. He really didn't even know my dad that well. And his little girl at home, and his wife. And he said that got him thinking, and he made himself get back up because he decided he was not going to die on that doorstep.
He eventually got help, was sent to a hospital in France. He was patched up a bit and sent back out to the battle.
He said at that time he turned over. He said no sooner had he turned over than a round hit trees above them and showered the foxhole and everything with with shrapnel and so forth.
He was hit in the other arm, and that injury took him out of the war.
It took out the whole big portion of his shoulder.
He went back to the hospital and wrote this letter to his father.
Ask Beulah, who was my grandmother, is she getting my mail? I haven't got but 2 or 3 letters from her.
He finally got to go home to Beulah and his family. He was awarded a Bronze Star and received 2 Purple Hearts.
My hat's off to all of those guys who served in World War II. I mean, I think sometimes we take for granted what they actually did and accomplished.
Clifford Chastain came back home, had 5 more children, so 7 children total. Mitchell Chastain told this story at his grandfather's funeral, and other than his father, none of the other children or grandchildren had ever heard that story.